Bitcoin's price is going up again right now, and everybody wants to know why. In this video, I'm going to show you why it's going up now, and more importantly, why it's almost guaranteed to continue to rise over the next years and decades. I call it the perfect storm for Bitcoin to grow. Knowing this, fundamental research will put you ahead of 95% of other investors that aren't paying attention. So stay tuned. All right, welcome back everyone. So today we are going to talk about why Bitcoin is going up right now. All right, now if you're new to the channel, on Thursdays we talk about investing, we talk about Bitcoin, we talk about cryptocurrencies, the most explosive asset class in the world to invest in. We talk about other high-level investing strategies. On Tuesdays, we talk about before you invest. We learn about things that you can make more money so that then you can invest more money. Today is Thursday. We're talking about investing. We're talking about Bitcoin right now. Today, I have some big news. This is macroeconomic news. This is the stuff that tells the future right here. And we're going to talk about why Bitcoin is going up right now. And like I said in the intro, even more importantly, why it continues to go up in the future, all right? So first of all, the first thing we have to understand is that value is subjective. And I'm going to start with this because you have a lot of people on whatever, YouTube, Twitter, CNBC, wherever, Peter Schiff, Noriel, whatever, and they say, Bitcoin has no value. Peter Schiff is the big one today saying, Bitcoin has no value. Gold has value, right? Besides storing value, gold has value, and he says, because I have gold cufflinks. Okay, sure. But value is subjective. What does that mean? That means that it's in the eye of the beholder. Just because something is valuable to me doesn't mean it's valuable to you. Something that's valuable to you doesn't mean it's valuable to me, right? Let's say that your great-great-great-grandmother passed you down some heirloom. Well, to me, that may look like junk. No offense, Grandma. It may look like junk, but to you, it could have a tremendous value, right? And so value is subjective. And so he says that it's that it can make gold cufflinks. Even if gold wasn't money, I have gold cufflinks, and that's valuable. Well, first of all, it's only valuable if people think it is. First of all. The second thing is that it misses is that Bitcoin has value too. There's lots of value in Bitcoin, and a lot of people can see it. Now, just because he doesn't see that value doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? So we can see, well, there's a lot of people in the United States that see the value in it, including myself, but we really see it like in oppressive regimes, people in Venezuela, Zimbabwe, places even in China where they're paying premiums to get money out of their crashing economies. To them, it has massive value. It has a massive value. They're paying huge premiums to do that because they see that, right? So I just want to start with that value subjective. And so why will it continue to rise in value? And we want to know that Bitcoin is valuable because, right? So again, he has his gold cufflinks and they're valuable because someone else will pay for them, but eventually maybe they won't. Maybe there won't be someone else to pay for them, right? And really at the end of the day, what are gold cufflinks really worth? I mean, I could have ones that look like they're gold. I could have silver, right? They're cufflinks is cufflinks, but nothing else can do what Bitcoin can. Now, I'm not going to go into all this because that's not the purpose of this video. The purpose of the video is we're going to talk about why it's going up now and why it's almost guaranteed to continue going up. But before we do, I just want to set the stage. So Bitcoin is valuable because it's digital scarcity. That's a really, really big one, digital scarcity. It's governed by code, not by people. People are always going to manipulate and game and scam. This is governed by code. It's censorship resistant. That means nobody, no government, nobody can seize it, steal it, all right, block it. It's immutable. Once you own it, nobody can take it, nobody can change it. It's borderless. Anybody in the world can use this, and it's permissionless. You don't have to get permission. Anyone can join it. You have to get a permission to get a bank account. You can only get a bank account if you're in a certain country and a certain border, right? All these things. And that's why it's valuable. Now, if none of those things matter to you, then I get it. You don't see the value, and that's fine. But there's a heck of a lot of people that do. And as things continue, all those things, all those traits there are going to be a lot more valuable to you. Now, I talk about all those in individual videos, so I'm not going to get into those. If you need to know more, leave me comments down below. If you want to know about any one of those specifically, leave in the comments below. I'll make a separate video about that. But moving right along, so those are the primary value drivers. Now, what would cause the value of Bitcoin to go up based off of those traits, right? So first of all, Bitcoin, you've probably heard it, it's digital gold. It's being, it's being referred to as gold all the time. It's like a digital gold. And the reason why it's being said that is because gold, for thousands and thousands of years, has been a chaos hedge, specifically more in the recent history as we get into these fiat money experiments and governments get out of control spending, is it's a chaos hedge. So fiat is a money that's not backed by anything. It's really what we've seen over the last 50 or 60 years. Now, people just think that's the way it is, but it's not the way it is. We're like 50 years into this fiat money experiment. For 5,000 years we've been on gold. We're 50 years into this Frankenstein economy, fiat. I'm not gonna get into all that. Actually, as a matter of fact, on Twitter today, I put out a tweet, or maybe it was yesterday, and I said, if you don't understand how the fiat money system works, you can't really be commenting on whether Bitcoin is going to succeed or not, right? You have to understand the fiat system. But what's happening is, as people are losing trust in the fiat system, as it's starting to shake and crumble and fall apart, more and more people are going to gold. Gold just reached an all-time high, well, the highest point it's been in 6 years. The central banks, I made a video about this, the central banks bought more gold than any time since 1971. The reason why 1971 is important, because that's the year the US dollar got off of the gold system. So central banks, they know something, probably know more than me and you. They're buying gold. Gold in the retail market just reached a new all-time high, well, in the last 6 years. So as fiat drops, gold rises and Bitcoin continues to rise, and I'm going to tell you exactly why that is. So the question is, if you look at the world right now, we have all this geopolitical stability. Is it getting better or is it getting worse? Do we have more threats of wars, more threats of sanctions, more threats of tariffs, more threats of whatever? Is it getting better or is it getting worse, right? And you just have to imagine, like, where do things go? We kind of have to predict the future. Well, I'm here to show you with facts, right? If you've been watching my show long enough, you know that I don't try and just give you a bunch of opinions. What I like to do is give you the facts, and we'll let you make those up. Now, if you like the facts and not opinions, give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up if you want the facts, because that's what I'm going to bring to you. If you don't like the facts, give me a thumbs down. But I don't think that's the case. What is coming? Here's what's happening. Here's the future. Here's what's happening. So, first of all, especially the United States, but really all the developed world, really all the world, we have this massive rise of what's being called democratic socialism. Now, it's really socialism, and socialism is nothing new. I'm not going to get into all the socialism. If you want to know videos about socialism, leave me in the comments below. But socialism, in my opinion, has not, well, it's not my opinion, it hasn't worked. History shows every time socialism has been implemented, it's failed, first by ruining a country and then failing. So today, we can see socialism failing. Venezuela was one of the best countries in the world 15, 20 years ago. Look at it today. It's falling apart. Socialism. So what's going on in the United States is they're saying, well, it's not socialism, it's democratic. It's democratic socialism. It's totally different. We're going to do it different this time. After hundreds or thousands of years of failed socialism, we'll do democratic socialism and it'll fix it. So I'm not going to get into all that. If you want to know more, leave me comments. But we have that. That's rising, all right? And what that means is then MMT. Now, I've made a couple of videos on MMT, modern monetary theory. Just go back to the playlist and look for those MMT videos where I explain that. But modern monetary theory, basically where the government can just print unlimited amounts of money and it doesn't matter. That's what they want to do. Again, go watch those videos or I'll link to it up above. MMT, just print as much money as they want, no big deal. We also have QE. You've probably been hearing of this. If you haven't, you need to pay attention to what's going on if you're investing, because QE is super important. That's quantitative easing. So basically the government is socializing Wall Street, right? The government is giving money to the banks. They're buying the bonds, they're buying the debt, they're injecting money into the system, and which is why we've seen asset prices go to the moon, and they basically just want to keep doing it forever, to infinity, QE to infinity. We have these growing entitlements, which are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'm mainly talking about like baby boomers and other entitlements. So the governments of the world are on the hook for paying entitlements, paying pensions, paying healthcare, paying Social Security, paying things like this. And it's just growing. Those entitlements are growing. Those liabilities are growing faster and faster and faster. We have 10,000 baby boomers every single day retiring. The U.S. debt. Now, all the debt in the world has skyrocketed, and the U.S. is not as bad as some of the other countries. But the U.S. debt is just blowing up. The interest on the debt, the interest, not paying the debt down, just the interest is scheduled to exceed income, tax revenue by 2022. That's coming up quick. That's in like 2 to 3 years. And you can imagine what happens after that. We'll get into more of that later. Geopolitical uncertainty, right? So like I'm talking about wars and tariffs and currency wars and trade wars, all these things, right? And then the big thing, and this is, I'm going to make a whole separate video on this, the US dollar is losing its status, all right? So the US dollar is the reserve currency of the world. After the Bretton Woods Agreement, the entire world pegged their currency to the US dollar. 1971, we got off the gold standard, but everyone's been continuing to peg to the dollar. All the money moves through the SWIFT system. So basically everybody's on the dollar, world reserve system. And just this week, well, it's been continuing to fall apart. And this week was a massive piece of news that dropped that was like maybe one of the biggest blows to the US world reserve status, US dollar world reserve status. Really big news. Again, needs its own separate video. If you guys want to hear that video, leave in the comments down below. Let me know if you want to hear that video and I'll make it. It might even need to be a 2-part video. Anyway, moving right along. So back to the facts. Deficits are growing. Like I said, they're growing. The deficits, right? A deficit is how much you're short, right? I have my income and I have my expenses, and the difference is the deficit, right? So right now, the deficits just surpassed $1 trillion per year. $1 per year. $1 trillion per year. It's crazy, right? I mean, so basically every year we're just going in debt by another trillion, another trillion, another trillion, another trillion. I mean, if you can imagine that, it's just crazy. We've added $60 trillion since 2008, just in the last 10 years alone. And there's just no sign of slowing down. The government expenditures have continued to increase. They've never gone down, and there's really nothing that makes me think they'll go down now, especially when you take in the liabilities, which I'm going to get to in a minute. And so when you really look at the liabilities, and if you add in all these unfunded liabilities that are there, we're really like $200 trillion. So they show like $22 trillion of debt. It's really like $200 trillion of debt if you add in all those liabilities in there. It's just a massive hole. And really we're about to get to this point of no return that I was talking about. All right, the point of no return is, like I said, by 2022, just the interest on the debt will be more than the tax receipts, all right? So you know what happens at that point, right? Hopefully you've never been in this situation. Let's say in like 2008, 2009, a lot of people were, where basically their bills exceeded their income. And what do? Well, you take on debt. So people were using credit cards and bank loans and home equity lines to pay for their life because their debt had risen, the payments on their debt had risen more than their income. And by 2022, in 2 to 3 years, that's where we're gonna be. Well, that's not good. In addition, we have the supply and demand problem. So the supply and demand is basically the demand for our debt. Well, how do we go into $1 trillion of debt? If you think about that, again, going back to your personal example, if your debt exceeded your income, well, where would you get the debt to keep funding your lifestyle? Like I said, credit cards, home equity lines, etc. Well, the government, I'm going to hear the comments, go ahead. The government's not a personal budget, I get it. But the government still has to get money from somewhere. So where do they get it? Well, foreign governments have been the largest debt buyers. You've probably heard the Chinese have all the debt for the United States and so forth. So the US government issues a bond. We can buy bonds personally, and that's been a good investment in the past. Foreign governments buy bonds, but guess what? Nobody wants to buy them anymore. Nobody wants to buy anymore. China's dumping them, everyone's dumping them, no one's buying them. So we have no demand for the bonds. But at the same time, we have all this supply. We need more and more debt, as I'm just showing you. We did $1 trillion a year just right off the bat. And by 2022, we're going to need even more. So there's tons of supply, but there's no demand. Nobody wants it. And so with no foreign buyers, what happens? Well, that's when the government just starts buying its own debt. That's what I'm talking about with QE, quantitative easing. So, well, shoot, if no governments are going to buy the bonds, then we'll just print some money and we'll just buy our own bonds. That doesn't work too good. And what happens is, because no foreign government wants to buy the bonds, it starts creating these currency wars. And really, I think it's a lot of what's behind these trade wars. So, I'm sure, again, if you have been paying any attention at all, basically, Trump is in trade wars, particularly with China, but lots of other countries, tariffs, those things. And really, it's kind of this proxy war because everybody's fighting over this right now. And so we just have this demand of debt, but nobody's buying it. And really what we're seeing all through politics, doesn't matter if you're on the right or the left, Democrat, Republican, whatever you are, it's really bipartisan, meaning both sides, they're all on board with spending more money. We need more money spent at the border. We need more money to fight terrorism. We need more money to pay these entitlements, on and on and on. And so we have all these calls for more and more spending. And as I said, we have these entitlements, these boomers, so to get back to, by 2050, all the tax collected will be spent just on boomers alone. Think about that. Now, 2050 may sound like a long time off, but that's 30 years. I mean, depending on how old you are, 30 years goes by relatively quickly, right? So we're talking about all the revenue collected is just going to go to the boomers. Well, what about everything else? What about everything else? Where's that money going to come from? Do you start to see what's going on here? So they're going to print and print and print. So what happens? What's going to happen? I've built this big problem up. Let me tell you what's going to happen. We have to print money. We have no choice. We need more money. We're not collecting it. We're going to continue spending more. No one's going to loan us money. So the only option is that we print money. Now, like I said, we're already drowning in debt. And what happens when we print money is we inflate the money supply, inflates the money supply, which basically makes all the money worth less and less and less. So that's basically what the government's doing, is weakening their currency. They're lowering the value of their currency, right? They don't have any tools left. That's what they do. Now, the dollar has already lost 90% of its purchasing power. Pay attention to this right here. Not many people understand this. People think that everything's gotten more expensive. Homes have gotten more expensive. Cars have gotten more expensive. Stocks have gotten more expensive. Well, not really. They haven't gotten more expensive, is that it takes more dollars to buy them today. Because what's happening, as they inflate the currency, they're stealing value. So you ever heard, in 1971, that was $100,000, but in today's dollars, that's like 2 million. You ever heard that? In today's dollars? What the heck does that even mean in today's dollars? Shouldn't 100,000 be 100,000 be 100,000? No, it's not. If you were to, let's say like in 1950, the average home price in the United States was, I don't know, 35 grand. But I don't want to buy a house right now. So I'm going to put the 35 grand in a bank account. Today, okay, I'm ready to buy that house. I take the 35 grand. What am I going to buy? It's not going to buy anything. It's lost all of its purchasing power. So they're stealing from you. Every time they print more money to pay for this growing debt, they are taking money out of your pocket. This is why the rich and the poor have this huge divide, and it continues to grow. The rich own assets. So as they print money, the assets inflate, but the poor are just working for wages, and your money is just worth less and less and less, all right? Again, it could be a whole nother separate video. If you want to know more about that, leave it in the comments down below, but I'm going to keep moving on. So what's going on right now, all right? Right now, we have a race to the bottom. It's a race to devalue. Now, this is a picture I have up on the screen. This is a tweet from the President of the United States, Donald Trump, today, 7/3, the day before 4th of July, the day before Independence Day. I'm recording this. And Donald Trump put out this tweet right here, and he says, quote, China and Europe are playing big currency manipulation games and pumping money into their system in order to compete with the USA, and we should match. What does that mean? Pumping money into the system. Pumping it from where? Printing it. They're printing more money. So all these countries, we've seen it, the ECB in Europe, Draghi, all these, basically every country is fighting this war. Everyone's trying to devalue their currencies to stay competitive, and Trump's on board with it. So they're racing to devalue your currency, right? This is the next phase of wars, right? And so they're devaluing your currency. And I don't want that. I don't want my currency to be devalued. Do you want all your wealth to be devalued? I would guess not. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Well, you have to get out of the dollars. So what would you do to preserve your wealth? Well, I have to get out of dollars, and I have to put it somewhere where they're not devaluing it. So where could I go? I could go to stocks, all right? But the stocks are at an all-time high right now. The stock market's at its all-time high, and it's been in like the longest bull run. If you look back through 100 years of data, it's boom bust, boom bust, boom bust, boom bust. We're in the longest boom period. So what comes next? Yeah, you know. The other thing we have is government bonds, government yields. But those are all-time low. They're not paying anything. As a matter of fact, they want to start doing negative interest rates, which means you actually have to pay them to borrow your money. It's just crazy. We have, like I said, stocks, bonds, and then we have all other asset classes. The GMO is predicting that all other asset classes will be losing value in the future. So where are you going to go to preserve your wealth? Well, the chaos hedge. We talked about this in the beginning, right? Chaos hedge. I need to take my money out of the system and put it into something that's a scarce asset that can't be manipulated. For 5,000 years, that's been gold, all right? Gold is a pretty scarce asset. It has a very low stock to flow ratio. That means the stock, the amount of existing supply versus the new incoming amount, the flow is relatively low, the inflation amount, and it's been really, really good. But today we have something better. Now, again, as I said in the beginning, Bitcoin, digital gold. Peter Schiff may want to tell you that you can't make cufflinks out of it, but you can do a lot of other things, including keeping your wealth where a government that's going broke can't steal it. Now, we know that the government already stole gold before. In the 1930s, they made gold illegal and they outlawed it and they made everybody turn their gold in. They've done it before, but they can't take Bitcoin away. They can't take your wealth away. And so I would argue that that has some value, especially as we can see governments around the world are going to be going broke, right? So we have Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the most scarce asset in the world. And we know that scarce assets perform really, really good in times when abundant money increases. So when they're printing money, assets go up, real estate goes up, stocks go up, and that's fine. But those aren't censorship resistant, right? At any time, the government could just seize your property, could seize your stocks, whatever, right? And so as the money just continues to gush into the system, assets are going to go up, but the most scarce assets will go up the most. Now, how does all this play out? All right, now these were facts I just laid out here. All right, now the opinion part is how it plays out. Well, I'm not going to put a whole bunch into opinion. I'm going to let you figure that out. But let's just say that humans act human. Unfortunately, humans are known to get greedy. Humans are known to be manipulative. Humans are known to take advantage of systems. And so I believe that because we understand human nature and humans will be human, I believe they will continue to keep pedal to the metal and print their way until they can no longer. If they could practice restraint, I believe they would have already. We can see in other countries over and over and over again, Venezuela, the latest victim, Argentina is right behind them. If they could practice restraint, they would, but they won't. They push it until they can't anymore. So humans act human. And I think what's going to happen is that's going to create mass adoption back into gold, but also into Bitcoin. All right. The people that have gotten to Bitcoin so far are the true believers, the one that believe in those whatever 6 or 7 values I talked about in the beginning. But for the big chunk of mass adoption to come in, they're not really going to care about all that. They just want to go somewhere where their money is not losing value, where the best store of value is, and they're going to find out that that's Bitcoin. They want to be able to escape the negative rates. They want to be able to escape oppressive regimes where maybe these countries are trying to seize their money, steal their money, and they're going to do that. And those are the things that are going to push Bitcoin. And so if you think Bitcoin is just taking off now, I mean, this is the reason why, because these things like Trump's tweet today, like 2 weeks ago, the Fed chair said they're going to start QE again, right? These are the things that are pushing it up over the last couple of weeks, and it's going to continue to push it up over the next 20 to 30 years. This is how Bitcoin becomes the new store of value, $8 trillion. This is how Bitcoin gets to 100,000, 200,000, even $1 million over the next 20, 30 years, because this stuff is going to continue to play out. That's what you're watching for. If you like this video, give me some thumbs up on it. If you don't like this video, well, if you don't like the way I put it together, give me a thumbs down. I know the content itself is troubling. So anyway, leave me comments. Let me know what you think if you want me to go deeper in any of those subjects. Other than that, that's it. To your success, I'm out.